Well, hello subscribers and welcome back. You join me actually on Brexit vote day, so we look forward to seeing what happens today. However, in the meantime, let us progress and continue with our studies of the OCR A-level specification. And today I am looking at this particular bullet point. Explain with the aid of a diagram why the price and output of some goods and services may be volatile. So let's consider the key words within this particular criterion of the specification. So first of all, we have our old favourite explain, and as I've mentioned on numerous occasions before, when we talk about explain, we mean really just a sort of scratch the surface understanding of this particular bullet point. With the aid of a diagram, it is fairly obvious. The price and output of some goods and services. Now, really, in this particular instance, where we're talking about volatility, and of course by volatility we mean constantly fluctuating upwards and downwards, really we're talking more so about goods rather than services. Okay, now, this is likely to appear, this sort of scenario is likely to appear on the synoptic paper, so the paper 3, the themes paper. And it would not be surprising if you got a case study which was related to, let's say, the housing market or the oil industry or agricultural markets, something like that. And oftentimes, candidates in the past, they look at questions surrounding this particular area of the spec and they think, oh, well, I could write an answer here, but it's just about demand and supply, and so that's just all too basic for A-level. And so what I'd like to say to you right from the outset is don't think that this is just too basic. Because of course you can talk about lots of basic things, so you can talk about shifts of demand, shifts of supply, elasticity, but you can then combine that with your knowledge and your understanding of the various types of elasticities, for example, and then apply that to the various markets. So, I think I've written this up here. Don't think that this is too easy for A-level. And whilst it's probably a little bit easier than other questions you might be asked, that of course is to your benefit, because why not answer the questions that are easy and you can still get the same marks. So in my next video I will probably show you a couple of past papers and show you the types of questions I'm talking about, and hopefully that will encourage you to go for these questions without fear of, oh, this is too easy for A-level. Okay, this bullet point appears within this area of the specification where we're looking at the interaction of demand and supply, and we're primarily therefore thinking about agricultural products and commodities. These are the real things that are focused on in your spec and also obviously in your textbook. You might could apply this possibly to, say, the housing market or the transport industry, but these are probably the areas where you're most likely to see these things and these particular themes arising. Okay, so let's consider then application and analysis. So this really is very straightforward, as I'm sure you know, those of you who are well grounded in your A-levels by now. So we're simply considering the extent of the shifts in demand and supply. So here on this particular diagram I'm talking about shifts of demand, and you can see we've got either start point here P1, and if demand shifts right, obviously you're going to get an increase in the price, and if demand shifts left you're going to get a reduction. So how could we apply this to these particular themes? Well, really this would be to do with, and you could tie this in with the whole notion of the global economic picture. Now, the global economic picture, as I'm sure you well know, is not particularly strong at the moment. Forecasted growth figures are not particularly strong. But in boom times, pardon me, the demand for agricultural products, the demand for commodities does shoot up. And consequently, you do get these spikes in the prices. Similarly, on a downturn in the economic cycle, demand shifts left, and consequently price falls. So that's fairly straightforward by way of explanation. What about then on the supply side? So again, we have a start point S1, P1, supply reduces, we're going up here to P2, supply increases, we're going to P3. And again, this can be going on all the time, and so price is moving upwards and downwards all the time. I guess, you could probably, just thinking here aloud on my feet, but think about exchange rates and the way in which exchange rates are constantly going upwards and downwards, stock markets and FTSE and stock prices and so on, constantly going upwards and downwards because of constant and persistent changes in demand and supply. If we were to apply this one, obviously, to agricultural markets, then we'd be primarily thinking about weather conditions, and that would tie in nicely then with the whole notion of gluts and shortages, and then you could tie that also in with buffer stocks, which I've touched on in previous videos. Or if you're thinking about maybe technology, well, America, of course, set to become the world's largest oil producer, primarily because of improvements in technology, particularly through this new technology of fracking. And that would obviously be shifting supply to the right and increasing supply and consequently reducing price. So that's all very, very straightforward and very basic. The only thing I think that you could sort of add into that, as I've touched on briefly at the beginning, is this whole notion of elasticity. Now, of course, elasticity is the next little section in the specification, so I haven't touched upon that as we've moved through this series of videos, but of course I do have a number of videos surrounding that particular topic. And how could we apply elasticity? I'll mention this briefly and then maybe come back to it in more detail at another time. Well, think about demand, particularly for agricultural products, very inelastic, and consequently shifts in supply lead to very significant reductions in price. I mean, you can see that if this curve was flatter, the demand curve was flatter, you get a much smaller reduction in price. Similarly, thinking about agricultural products, oil, etc., very inelastic in supply, and consequently changes in demand will result in very substantial changes in price. Now, when you bring these two factors together, the inelastic demand combined with the inelastic supply, and you're getting shifts in both of those, you can obviously see in your mind's eye, I'm sure, how that would result in very significant and sort of reinforced price reductions or increases depending upon the direction of travel. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today, and I'll be back with the next in the series very soon. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, thank you for coming along. If you're not a regular subscriber, do hit that subscribe button. Hit the notifications button to see a new video release every day from now until the exams. And obviously follow me on other social media, Twitter, G_Economics, Instagram, G_Economics. Check out my website, www.geconomics.co.uk/events. And I'm also available on LinkedIn. Bye for now.